I'm not gonna lie, this is a pretty awesome review. Now, as far as the Alpha 15 is concerned, you be the judge. When it comes to the SKUs on our Alpha 15, there's two main SKUs out there. $1,100 model at the current time. This one has 16 gigs of RAM and 144 Hz display. Everything else about it is the same. If you want to save $100, that's going to bring you down to 8 gigabytes of RAM and 120 Hz panel. However, I recommend this one based on the following. Not so much the memory, of course you can upgrade that, and perhaps that's worth it on its own, although I do find 8 gigabytes of RAM obviously costing less than $100. It's the display. The thin bezel 120 Hz panels that I have experience with so far are not as bright and not as color vibrant as the 144 Hz display. For that reason alone, I would recommend this. Now, this one came from HIDevolution, and what we have done this time is we have some stock paste thermal performance numbers, right? Some stock paste results, and now we have the liquid metal and the Fuji poly on there. So the temperature difference is quite extreme, and this is going to give you a case scenario based on where you decide to purchase this, which is something we have not featured in the past. So with that said, let's rock and roll.
The MSI Alpha 15 is using a 15.6-inch chassis, has an aluminum lid, plastic deck, and plastic bottom panel, weighing in at 5 pounds and at the thickest point just over 1.5 inches thick. The CPU is using the Ryzen 7 3750H with a 35-watt TDP. The integrated GPU is the RX Vega 10, running at around 15 watts, and the dedicated RX5500m 4 gigabytes of VRAM at 85 watts. We have 16 gigabytes of memory at dual channel. It is 2666 memory, but the Ryzen 7 has it clocked and locked at 2400 megahertz. For storage, we have a single M.2 512 gigabyte Samsung NVMe and an empty 2.5-inch drive bay with included hardware and screws. The network interface card is using the Realtek 8822CE, and the battery size is 51 watt-hours, but the efficient Ryzen is giving us a consistent 4 to 5 hours of runtime. The display is a Full HD 144 Hz FreeSync panel with a FreeSync range between 48 and 144 Hz, coming in at 98% standard RGB at 322 nits. And supplying power to all of which you see here is a small in physical size 180 watt power supply unit. Ports on our Alpha 15 include a LAN, HDMI, mini display port, 3 USB 3.1s, a USB-C, a separate headphone and mic jack, and a full-size card reader connected via USB 2.0. The Windows Precision touchpad is plastic yet smooth, gestures decently. I had a few hiccups here and there. We do have dedicated buttons with nice click actuation. The Steelseries keyboard is solid as usual and is quite quiet to type on. The 3 buttons on the top right of our keyboard deck include a maximum fan button, increasing that to 52 decibels. The Steelseries keyboard button allows us to cycle through various keyboard RGB patterns, and the power button. Along our thin bezel display up to the top is our webcam and mic. So our 720p webcam and microphone are located at the top of the bezel. Keyboard strokes sound like this. Maximum fans picked up, just like so. You can still hear my voice. Pretty much is what it is here, basic stuff.
The two main pieces of software on our MSI Alpha. One, Steelseries Keyboard software controls all of the RGB. It is its own entity. It's been working great for a long time, and it's working great now, right on MSI. However, that Dragon Center, you tech enthusiasts already know where I'm going with this. Most of you guys remove that. I was having some issues with it, not only just performance issues, but stability issues on this platform at this current time. So with that said, I did a complete OS wipe. I reinstalled everything but the Dragon Center, and all the performance metrics that you are about to see are directly reflecting this laptop not being used with Dragon Center. Let's roll the clip.
Our Alpha 15 has been flashed with the latest BIOS and EC firmware, maximum fan speed at 52 decibels, auto fan at 45 decibels, idle fan acoustics 28 decibels, some class-leading examples here today. Ambient temperature tested with stock thermal paste and liquid metal both at 71 degrees Fahrenheit. Stock thermal paste temps on the GPU and CPU hit 88 degrees Celsius. Liquid metal temps on the CPU hit 76 degrees Celsius. The GPU 68 degrees Celsius. This was using the auto fan, but with maximum fan with stock testing. Pretty big difference here. However, maximum fan and automatic fan thermally seem to be very close to one another within about 2 to 3 degrees Celsius. Fire strike score of our GPU over 12,300, CPU over 12,500. Time SPY, GPU 4,100, CPU 3,500. Cinebench 20 over 1700, Cinebench 15, 775. Skin temperatures of the keyboard always under 40 degrees Celsius using the automatic fan curve and of course with liquid metal. And that speaker audio is quite strong, especially after installing that Nahimic hotfix audio patch.
Before we proceed with the 4 minutes of gameplay, there's 4 things you need to be made aware of. 1, the off-screen gameplay capture was done because OBS Studio and this particular hardware, they're not playing nicely together at this time. While I was able to figure out somewhat of a solution, the 10 to 12% performance hit was not fair to you and it's not fair to the laptop, so pardon the off-screen gameplay capture. Number 2, this has a fresh OS without Dragon Center as mentioned earlier, so please keep that in mind. Number 3, probably the most important here, is realizing the following. 4 gigabytes of VRAM on this AMD graphics card is not quite enough. We are hitting that VRAM bottleneck across many titles, and making sure you dial back some of those settings is going to be the key ingredient to maximizing the actual performance and just overall smoothness of gameplay on your Alpha 15. And number 4, this is really cool. I did not see this coming. Because we have the Vega integrated graphics and we have the RX dedicated graphics, the Radeon software can do something very, very unique, and it's very intuitive. And that allows us to pick the exact application and what graphics card we want it to use. And why that seems like a no-brainer and common sense, and yes, Nvidia does this, it's a lot more intuitive and clean on this platform. But with that said, it may not be quite as smart as some of the other platforms. For example, the first time I tried Call of Duty Modern Warfare, it automatically would default to the Vega graphics, and you can imagine how that slideshow turned out. So just be very mindful of that. When you get your hands on this, you load up your favorite title. If it's performing poorly, you'll be able to tell what graphics card it's using within the options menu most times, and then just go to your Radeon settings, select which one you want it to use, and you should never have to do that again, pending no driver failure on AMD's part. All right, with that out of the way, 4 minutes of gameplay, lots of explanation, let's roll it.
For starters, look how close our Firestrike graphics score is between the RX5500M and a 1660 Ti. Both of these are running bone stock, 2200 point difference. Have another look side by side within the Battlefield 5 firing range, with the RX5500M on the left and the 1660 Ti on the right. Not a huge FPS difference here between the two, and I think we still have a little bit more room to work with the Alpha 15, as the wattage here is not even capping at its 85 watt TDP. However, this does not carry over to a title such as Overwatch, and this has been one of the strangest things when it comes to this laptop, although I'm not too surprised since it is in its infancy. In some titles it does really good at keeping up with the 1660 Ti, and other titles it's not even close. Although with that said, I'm not really going to complain as I'm still in triple-digit FPS. Now when it comes to the RX5500M, you have to respect that 4GB VRAM bottleneck. Now these AMD GPUs tend to use a little bit more video memory compared to the Nvidia ones, and with a 4GB cap, we are going to get some stuttering once we eclipse that 4,000 megabytes of VRAM, and it happens in most titles as you can see here. It's very annoying, it's something you have to pay attention to, and you must respect this. Dialing down some settings to alleviate that bottleneck is going to be the difference between a stuttery slideshow mess and smooth as butter gameplay. Now, where you need to place those settings is going to be a matter of trial and error. You never know when the next AMD driver update is going to come along and is either going to screw things up or make things fantastic. But regardless, if I could keep that memory usage to around 3,500 megabytes or less, gameplay was insanely smooth. Seriously, I could not believe how great this felt. If I was not monitoring any of this and I had no idea what was under the hood, I would not be able to tell the difference between this and a 1660 Ti once we had this thing locked and loaded, dialed in the way it needs to be. Respect that video memory. And because of this particular bottleneck, this is going to be one of those kinds of systems where I just can't test everything in Ultra like I've been able to do in the past. Doing so is going to yield some hellacious performance discrepancies, so again, respecting that video memory. Take Rage 2 for example, I've got everything running at high settings, it's not using a lot of VRAM, and I'm getting over 60 FPS at all times. Very good performance and it looks fantastic. And the new Call of Duty Modern Warfare was a hot mess and needed a massive amount of tweaking. Once I had this dialed in, holy cow, this was one of the best performing games I tested out of the whole entire suite, and you're only seeing a fraction of the titles that I had played. I had a lot of fun here. This ran fantastic, always in the triple digits for online multiplayer. Really great performance, but keeping that VRAM buffer to around 3,600 megabytes, we are cutting it close, so keep your eyes on the prize. And my favorite battle royale shooter, of course, Apex Legends. Once I get this thing dialed in, I am easily able to average 100 FPS. Smooth as butter here. Very enjoyable. With Fortnite, high settings, easily able to maintain below 4 gigabytes of VRAM used, 90 FPS average, overall very pleased. Now take the Jedi Fallen Order for example, this game runs poorly on the RX5500m. With the settings all on high, we are nowhere close to capping or eclipsing that 4 gigabyte VRAM buffer, and there's just a lot of hitching and stuttering, and this particular lockup here lasted for about 20 seconds before resuming normalcy.
As a tech enthusiast, I really like this laptop. Can I recommend it to somebody who has no business tuning or tweaking or zero interest in doing so? Probably not right now, maybe 6 months down the road. Most of us know that AMD setups get a lot better as they age. Now when it comes to the overall aesthetics, I like it, but I'm not a fan of this green sticker. This being an aluminum lid, it's a fingerprint magnet. And with that said, wiping this thing down, well, my microfiber cloth snagged this and it's starting to peel off here, here, and here. If this were mine, and I wish it were, this sticker would be gone. I would peel off this red sticker, it would be blacked out, and I think it would look pretty sweet. The most important question, hopefully I made it this far, does the CPU, the Ryzen 7 3750H, bottleneck the RX5500m? Not really. As long as the GPU is fully saturated to that 99%, there's no bottleneck here. 4 cores, 8 threads, lower wattage, and holding an excellent boost clock. This is really competitive to the 9300H, and I think the benchmarks reflect that quite well. Just make sure you get rid of that Dragon Center. Alright, that's going to do it for now. Hopefully you enjoyed the review. This is Bob of All Trades, and I'll see you in the next video.